I met this girl when I was 10 years old, and what I love most, she had so much soul. Hey everybody, it's Old School Heart. Yes, it's Old School Heart. Yes, it's been a minute. Yes, I'm sorry. I am so sorry for the inconsistencies, not doing a lot of videos, but I'm so glad to be here. I'm so glad that you are here. I'm so glad that you clicked on this video. From the bottom of my heart, gratitude. Thank you so much. If you are new to this channel, please hit that subscription button. If you also could, go ahead and like this video up front. I promise you, by liking it up front, you won't be disappointed. You never will. You will have something of substance before you leave this video. So if you hit the like button for me now, you will not regret it. I want to just thank you guys so much for tuning in. These videos are going to be a lot more consistent because I have rearranged some things. I have changed some things, and now I got time, and I am so excited about being able to do videos with you again. I hope you stick along with me. I hope you leave some comments for me on what you'd like to see from this channel. But y'all, I'm back. So I want to say, how y'all doing? I hope y'all been doing well. I hope everything is going well in your life. I hope that you have had time to reflect. I hope you've had time to breathe and meditate and pray, or whatever it is you do to sustain yourself. You know, one of the things that I love about Abraham Hicks, if you're into the spirituality scene, Abraham Hicks says that a lot of times you have to be inspired to do, because inspired to do produces results. And so a lot of the reason why I was gone is because I wasn't inspired to do. You know, and not being inspired to do means that you don't get the best from me. And so I'm in the best position now to give you what comes from my heart and to give you my gift. And so I want to say thank you so much for the ride. I love you guys. And I thank you so much for consistently being with me. So please like this video. Please share this video to other platforms, and also get some people over here to join our family. I don't discriminate. I love us all. So just get some people over here if you can. Share my video so they can come on over here and discuss with us. This year, I'm coming for everything. I'm speaking it into existence. This year, I'm coming for everything. I'm speaking it into existence. This year, I'm coming for everything. I'm speaking it into existence. It's one of the things that Breonna texted her friend at the beginning of 2020. She sent that text with the emojis, fingers crossed, 2 of them actually, and 2 heart signs. So if you could, if you're looking at this video, give me 2 emojis with the fingers crossed or 2 heart signs in support of Breonna. Of course, you can tell by the title, this video is going to be about Breonna, all things Breonna, who she was, that fateful night that she lost her life, some developing things that I found out about the case, and then how we can advocate for Breonna. And so, like who was Breonna Taylor? She was born June 5th, 1993. She's originally from Michigan. She moved to Louisville with her mother, whose name is Tamika Palmer, and her little sister. They moved when Breonna was a teenager. Her dad, unfortunately, went to jail when she was 6 years old. So unfortunately, Breonna did not know much about him, and he went to jail for life. And I believe it was for drugs or possession, as well as murder. So once again, she did not know who her father was due to incarceration. She's affectionately known as Bree. Her uncle calls her Bree Bree. She's she's a driven girl. She was beautiful. She's energetic. She was responsible. She was very mature for her age. She was fun. She was outgoing. She attended Western High School in Louisville and University of Kentucky. Tamika Palmer, her mom, has said that Breonna, and I believe she said this on the New York Times, Hulu Presents Breonna Taylor. If you haven't looked at that documentary, I'll post it below so that you can take a look at it. But one of the things that she says about Breonna is that from an early age, Breonna took an interest in health and medicine and medical care, to the point where her mother was taking insulin and Breonna rejoicingly or excitedly asked to do the insulin for her grandmother, and she just always thought that that was so cute, but also a little different, and she knew that Breonna probably would go towards the medical field, and Breonna did end up doing that. She received her EMT license and she worked as an EMT, and then as we see her life before she died, she is an ER tech in 2 different hospitals. So she has 2 different jobs in 2 different hospitals before she dies. So that is Breonna Taylor. A lot of people have said Breonna Taylor as a friend was very, very loyal. Breonna was first introduced to us in May after the murder of George Floyd. Now, George Floyd, his death introduced a lot of other cases that we were unaware of. And so since then, we've heard of many other terrible, terrible stories of Black people being killed by police. And so Breonnas was one of them that came into the spotlight in May, although her family had been fighting relentlessly for people to take recognition of Breonna, for people to hear about her story and also help in fighting for justice for her. If it wasn't for her family just saying, no, something ain't right, I'm not letting this go, we would not hear about this. And so thank God for Tamika Palmer. And of course, as a mother would, they're not going to be silenced. And so of course, Tamika Palmer, we love you for continuously fighting for your child. And because of your fight, she is known everywhere. And when I say that she's known everywhere, Breonna Taylor ended up becoming a high profile case to us through different celebrities like Oprah. Even Beyonce came out and said justice for Breonna, say her name, like the infamous hashtag that came about through Sandra Bland. And then as her story began to gain recognition, then we hear the hashtag arrest the cops that killed Breonna Taylor. There are even songs that are written about Breonna Taylor. One of my favorites of those is going to be Toby Ngawe. One of his became very popular in the summertime. And so, like I said, Breonna's family has been fighting for justice for her since the beginning. And this is the reason why we know her story. And so that is who I found out who Breonna Taylor was. You know, Breonna Taylor was just a beautiful girl. And what I love about what I see in Breonna is what I see in myself. You know, a young girl with chubby cheeks, you know, a little heavy set like me, just a beautiful girl who had promise, who had direction, who made mistakes, who got up and tried again. She is me. And I know as you're watching this video, you can find a little bit of Breonna Taylor in you, especially if you're a young Black woman like myself. And so that is the reason why I think she resonates with so many people. She resonates with so many people because she is us. She is me. She is you. And so that is the reason why the focus has been solely on trying to get justice for her, solely trying to get her name out there, that something is not right about what happened to her. There's not something that's not right. Everything about this is not right. And today we're going to discuss all of that. So let's go back to that fateful night. The night was March 13th, 2020. Breonna had worked quite a bit. If you look at her Twitter feed, which is still available, you'll see that Breonna worked like a dog. And I think she started working like that about September of 2019. She started working a lot consistently, and it might even be before then, but she started working both jobs. It was gruesome, it was tiring, and then we see COVID start at the end of January, beginning of February. So Breonna is working a lot. So March 13th, this is her day off. And if you guys know, when we finally get that day off, we want to do everything that we can. We want to rest. We want to have a good time. And so that was the day for Breonna Taylor. What she did was she went on a date with her boyfriend, which is Kenneth Walker. We'll talk a little bit more about Kenneth as we go along. But she went on a date with Kenneth Walker to Texas Roadhouse. From there, they were trying to decide where they were going to go for the night. Now, one of the things that I always find astonishing about deaths and about people dying is a lot of times they do what's opposite of them to do. What I mean by that is, like, sometimes you'll hear about deaths and you'll hear somebody say they usually go down this street to go home. But instead of going down this particular street, they went down another street, which is totally unlike them. And then, they're hit by a car, and so this is by happenstance, stuff that happens by happenstance. Or you're here, about somebody who is not a party goer. They don't go to the party, and then one day they decide to go to the club all of a sudden, and that's the day that the club is shot up. And so that's what we see with Breonna. One of the things that has been said a lot, and Kenneth Walker said this in the Hulu documentary, is most of the time they spent their nights at Kenneth Walker's house. And the reason why they spent their nights at Kenneth Walker's house is because Breonna lived with her sister, and a lot of times her goddaughter would be there. So they wouldn't have time to themselves. And so a lot of times they would spend the day at Kenneth Walker's house. On this rare occasion, and this is what I mean by happenstance, on this rare occasion, because there was nobody at Breonna's house but Breonna, her and Kenneth stayed at Breonna's house that night, which is totally, like I said, unlike them, to stay there, but they stayed at the house. So they went on a date, they headed back to the house. They were trying to decide what they were going to do, whether it be Uno or Netflix, and they both decided that they're going to do both. But because Breonna has worked her tail off at those two jobs, she quickly went to sleep, and Kenneth was there watching a Netflix movie by himself. And so, Kenneth finally dozes off to sleep himself, and basically Netflix is watching itself. And they hear a loud banging on the door. A loud banging. So naturally, when you hear a loud banging on the door, you're startled. You don't know what's happening. You're scared. You're alarmed. And as the banging continues, Kenneth Walker, Breonna's boyfriend, suspects that it's her ex-boyfriend. Now, the reason why he suspects it's the ex-boyfriend is because he's come over the house before when Kenneth Walker was there. Now, Kenneth Walker didn't say that they had any fight or anything like that, but that the ex-boyfriend was kind of, salty, jealous, didn't know why Kenneth Walker was there, but he doesn't say that they've scuffled at all. And we'll talk about the ex-boyfriend as we go along as well. And so that's who Kenneth thought was at the door. And so naturally, to protect himself and to also protect Breonna, he grabs his gun that he is registered in the state of Louisville to use. So as Kenneth grabs this gun in an effort to protect the both of them, the knocking ensues. But as the knocking ensues, so does the door forcefully seem like somebody's pushing against it and somebody's banging against to come in, which startles them even more. And Breonna at this point is screaming, "Who is it? Who is it?" And at this point, I know that she's frustrated, she's startled, she's angry, because allegedly no one is identifying themselves at the door. No one is saying anything. So at this point, Kenneth is in full protection mode. You know, he doesn't know who's at the door. Somebody is forcefully making themselves into the home. He's trying to protect Breonna, and so he fires off a shot. When he fires off a shot, it hits Sergeant Mattingly. According to the record, it hits Sergeant Mattingly in the thigh. And where he's hit, a lot of blood will come out. He'll lose a lot of blood. And if he continues to lose a lot of blood, what'll happen is that he'll eventually die. So because he was shot, next thing you know, all hell breaks loose and the officers are returning fire. Now, at this time, we still don't know what's going on. Kenneth and Breonna still have no clue what's going on, but they're all shooting in retaliation for Sergeant Mattingly being shot. Now, Hankinson alone, which is Brett Hankinson, who was an officer sent there to do the no-knock warrant, he is shooting blindly into the house. In front of him is a window with blinds. It's pitch dark, and he shoots fire into the house, not knowing who's in the house, not knowing anything at all. But it said that he has hit 10 shots into the house. Overall, there's over 25 shots into the house, and Breonna was shot 5 times, according to what we know. And I'll get into what we know a little bit later as well. So Breonna's shot, she's down, she's coughing, of course, she's still alive, she's coughing, of course, but Walker doesn't know what's going on. There's shots coming in the house. Breonna's down, she's coughing. There's nothing that really he can do about it. So that there's a room adjacent to the hallway that they were both standing in. Kenneth ducks down, runs into that room to avoid fire, and he then begins to call his mom. And when he calls his mom tells him, "Look, I don't know why you calling me. You need to call 911. And then that is where we hear the conversation that Kenneth Walker has with the 911 operator. And from this conversation, what you can gather is that Kenneth does not know what is going on. He does not know that there is a no-knock warrant. He does not know that there are police officers that are trying to get to him. He knows none of this. All he knows is that his girlfriend, Breonna, has been shot. And from that conversation, we also know that it is complete silence. So no one has identified themselves at all. No one has said that police officers are there. They have not announced themselves. He's quietly in that room speaking with police. He's frantic. He's in fear. He's crying. And Breonna is on the floor. He looks at her from that room and from the hallway, and they're asking him, is she making any noise? Is she saying anything? And he's like, no, she's not saying anything, but she is down. She is shot. Now, usually during a no-knock raid, if you have a no-knock warrant, there should be an ambulance present, because you don't know what's going to go on. You know, no-knock warrants, of course, are used for drug trafficking, any type of drug possession, or possession of of arms, possession of guns. When you're dealing with those two things, it's important that you have a number of officers around, and then it's also important that you have ambulance on standby just in case something goes down with the police officers or victims, innocent or guilty. You want to have an ambulance there. For some odd reason, on this particular day, they told the ambulance to leave the scene an hour before they go to Breonna's home. And so that's really unusual to happen, but in this case it did happen. So at this point, there is no ambulance. Officer Madeline is down. They're trying to get help for him, and then also you have Kenneth Walker trying to get help for Breonna. Now, the bad part about the ambulance leaving an hour early is that when they try to return back to that same spot, there's another ambulance that takes that call they don't know where Officer Madeline is or where Breonna is. They get lost, they get turned around, and they're late to receiving medical attention. They're late on the scene. So due to the ambulance not being there at all, what we find out is that no one is getting medical attention. No one knows that Breonna has been shot. The police don't know that. And also, Officer Madeline is not getting the help he needs as well because they allowed the ambulance to leave. So you have two people down at the time, and both are unaware of each other. Officer Madeline doesn't know that Breonna is shot, and Kenneth Walker does not know that he struck an officer. So that is what happened on March 13, 2020 to Breonna Taylor. So that night in particular, Kenneth is taken into custody for shooting Officer Madeline. Now, he doesn't know that this was a no-knock raid. So when they finally get him, he says, I was not aware of any of this. I was scared. I was frightened. And you can hear him saying that as they have cuffed him and taken him into custody. I don't know anything. I was scared. I was just trying to protect myself. Breonna, he keeps repeating her name. All the while, Breonna still lay dead in the apartment. Now, we do know that Kenneth did get a chance to call Breonna's mother while he was in that room. And so Breonna's mother was aware that something had happened to Breonna. So Breonna's mother, Tamika Palmer, arrives on the scene. And what they tell her to do is to go to the hospital. So she does oblige and she goes to the hospital. She waits there 2 hours, repeatedly checking to see where Breonna was. And finally, somebody tells her that Breonna is not there. And as somebody who has dealt with hospitals, nurses, staff, and different things like that, that is so frustrating, especially if you are a parent and you're trying to figure out what's going on with your child. And you keep asking, hey, is Breonna here? Did you hear anything? And people are giving you the runaround. Just place yourself in Breonna's mom's shoes. That's frightening. That's scary. Kenneth is not there to give you more information because he's in police custody, and so somebody eventually tells her, hey, you know what? Breonna's not here. So Tamika Palmer goes back to her daughter's apartment. And of course, it's all blocked out. It's in the early morning hours at this point. Yellow tape across the line. She can see from afar. And, finally a cop comes to her and she's like, I just need to know what's going on with Breonna. And a lady officer finally says, Breonna is still in the apartment. And that's when Tamika Palmer and her family finally realize that Breonna is gone. They finally realize that Breonna is gone. She's not coming back. And they're just waiting to even go into the apartment, and it takes a while for the cops to gather all of their information. So she's sitting there waiting, and her baby girl is in that home, is in that apartment dead. Now, if you know anything about the media, if you've ever worked in news or news broadcasting, you know that the police have first dibs on communication. They're the first to get the right to start a narrative about anything that has happened, anything that has happened in the community. They're the first to start the narrative. They're the first to be called by the media to get the story. And so they get to paint their picture first. Okay, and so Louisville Police Department are the first to start the narrative about Breonna Taylor and Kenneth Walker. And so basically one of the first press conferences that they have about Breonna Taylor and Kenneth Walker are that Officer Mattingly was fatally shot in the thigh and he was in critical condition. Not that Breonna Taylor was dead, not that they almost killed Kenneth Walker, but that Officer Mattingly was fatally shot. And it was due to Breonna and Kenneth Walker. So imagine Tamika Palmer, the mother, hearing this story about there was a no-knock warrant. They were there to get some information about Breonna Taylor, but it ended up with Kenneth Walker shooting Officer Mattingly. And so as this narrative gets bigger and wider, it causes some issues. And it causes people to look at Tamika Palmer, Breonna Taylor, and Kenneth Walker as criminals, as lying, deceitful, evil people because they shot an officer. Kenneth Walker shot an officer. And so Tamika Palmer accounts that as she was trying to get her baby a funeral service and trying to make arrangements and different things like that, there were a lot of funeral homes that rejected having the funeral at their location due to what the Louisville Police Department said about Breonna and Kenneth Walker. So here we have a mother who clearly, has no clue of what has really happened. All she knows is that her baby girl is killed. All she knows that there's this no-knock warrant. She doesn't know what's attached to this, what happened, and she's trying to have a service for Breonna Taylor, and she's being outright refused by somebody. She's being outright refused by funeral homes because the narrative was in the favor of Louisville Police Department, and the narrative was in the favor of Officer Mattingly. Exactly. Terrible, right? And it's funny, a lot of times when, and I even say this about Chicago, every week we get these reports, and if you're not from Chicago, you may not be aware of this, but every weekend or Sunday, we get these reports about gun violence in Chicago, how many people were killed, how many people were shot. We get a lot of information from the police department on little kids being shot and different things like that. And they get that first narrative. We don't know whether or not these police officers have information about what's about to go down in the city, and they just neglected to have enough enforcement on scene. We get a lot of information first so that the narrative is in their favor. And we see that with Louisville Police Department. We see that in Chicago here. They get first dibs. And because they get first dibs, the narrative is already out there, right? So I know everybody wants to know, how did we get to a no-knock warrant for somebody as innocent as Breonna Taylor? Here you have a 26-year-old woman who works 2 jobs, who pretty much has been able to take full responsibility for herself, who was a college student, who was a loving daughter, who was a dedicated friend. How did we get to a no-knock warrant? So let's go back to 2019. It's 2019. It's May or June of 2019. And there's this viral video of a prom king. He's a black young man, prom king of his high school. He has several scholarships. He has several offers from different colleges. He is driving to go get a Slurpee in his mom's car. On his way to get a Slurpee, he kind of makes an improper lane usage, or he uses a lane in an incorrect way, and he's stopped by police. Now, usually when there's improper lane usage, you just receive a ticket. On this particular day, though, it wasn't just a ticket. They asked the young man to step out of the car. And the young man is totally confused. But this is 2019. He's also scared. He's heard of Philando Castile. He's heard of other people, Eric Garner. And so he's immediately frightened because he's trying to figure out, why exactly am I getting out of my car over improper lane usage? And they tell him to step out of the car. And before they tell him to step out of the car, he calls his mom and he says, "Mom, there are police officers here. I'm being arrested. I'm on this street. I just want you to know." And so mom ends up on the scene as well. When she gets to the scene, her son is handcuffed. They are searching the car. And so mom asks, I'm not understanding what's going on. My son said that he was being pulled over for improper lane usage, but why is he in handcuffs? Why are you searching my car? He was only going to get a Slurpee. The car was pretty nice as well. So she's just trying to figure out what exactly is going on. The police officer is very, very sassy, arrogant, and ignorant in the way that he speaks to this mom. And all the while, this is being video recorded. And she's like, "I understand that you guys got to do, work here, but I'm trying to get a full understanding of why my son is in handcuffs for improper lane usage." He tells her that these are routine stops to check to see if there is drug possession or there is gun possession. She says, "Okay, I understand that you have to do that, but this is a young boy. You have him in handcuffs. He says he's in his mother's car. Why is he in handcuffs? Why is it like this?" And, he says, "Well, you know what? If you are so smart, you can do my job and tell us how we can do it better." Just very arrogant. And that's one thing that I find to be so annoying. I find to be so disheartening is that you can go to Walmart, you can go to Ross, and these people that make $5 an hour, if they say anything disrespectful to you, you are on their ass, right? But a police officer can speak to you any kind of way, and if you talk back to them that way, they have a whole fit with you. They go to extra limit with you, and I'm not understanding why they don't have customer service like you would have at a Ross. They are so arrogant that they believe that you have to speak respectfully to them, but they do not have to do that to you. And you see that in this video. And I believe that video is still up. It's still viral. I may post a link of where you can listen to that at. And actually, I heard it actually on a podcast, The Daily, and I'll leave that link below so that you can take a look at it. But he basically says to her, "If you think you can do this better, you know a better way that we can check for drug possession, then you need to give it to us." And she's like, "I understand you trying to do your job, but this is the most." And that conversation ended with, "Well, okay, you got a court case. Sorry for the inconvenience, bye." And so that created outrage in Louisville, Kentucky. That created outrage. People were hella upset about that. And during that time, coincidentally, there was a policing expert at the Louisville Police Department that was trying to gather information in order to assist the department in doing better. And so because there was a lot of outrage, the police chief decided, okay, we got an expert here. I'm going to ask how we can better police our area, because right now people are on my ass. I want them off my ass. I want to be in this position again. And so I need to figure out how we can smooth this shit over. And so basically what they do is he finds somebody that he can smooth this over with. And that expert's name was Robin Engel. Now, Robin suggests that Louisville Police Department stop flooding specific areas and harassing civilians in an effort to find drugs, because that doesn't do anything for the community. You're harassing the community. You're harassing innocent people. How is this at all effective? And she's right. How is stopping innocent people in an effort to find drugs, and you're not finding anything to begin with? You know, how is this effective? And so what she basically says is, what you need to do is choose one micro location. You need to choose a location that has been the focus of a lot of crime. And you begin to determine why it is that way. What is it about this area that makes it a hot spot for crime in that community? Once you identify this hot spot, which Louisville does at the end of 2019, and they do it in December of 2019, they find this hot spot. They choose the area. The area that they choose is Elliott Avenue. And this is also known as One City Block. They place hidden surveillance on that block, One City Block. And what they find is that there's one particular house on that block, 2424 Elliott Avenue, that was a high traffic spot, which in layman terms means it's a trap house. We know about trap houses. We've seen the Pink House, you know, that museum that they have in Atlanta that T.I. and a couple of other people came with. They identified this as a trap house. Now, this house was allegedly being run by an ex-boyfriend that Breonna Taylor was dealing with. His name is Jamal Glover. Now, no one knows when Jamarcus and Breonna, how they met. No one knows that. But what we do know is that they started talking to each other in 2016. And it's been an on again, off again relationship since then. So, who is Jamarcus Glover? Jamarcus Glover is a convicted drug dealer in 2008 at the young age of 18. He is convicted of drug trafficking. And then we see in 2014, he moves to Louisville. He's from Mississippi. So he lived in Mississippi. He had a drug charge there. He then moved to Louisville, I guess, to get away. And I was talking to a friend. I'm like, what would make him go from Mississippi to Louisville of all places? Because Louisville is no better than Mississippi. And she said, we don't know how bad his life was in Mississippi. And if you think about it, you know, especially as it relates to cases and different things like that, Mississippi is infamous for racial discrimination in cases. You know, one of the stories that I did a while ago was on a young man who was convicted 6 times for killing 3 people. A very lack of evidence, but the district attorney in Mississippi continuously tried this case. And what he would do was he would X out black juries at 75% rate. They found this out, you know, and his name was Curtis Flowers, was the person that was convicted, and he's now out of jail. But, you know, Mississippi is such a horrible place. And even though research has shown that this district attorney has done that so many times, he was reelected, and then he was found at no fault for the research that they found about him Xing out black jurors. That means that a lot of these people, you know, that try to sit in juries are not able to. And so most of these juries are all white juries, or if not, the majority of them are all white. And so Mississippi is a horrible place. I don't know much about Jamarcus. I don't know much about his life. Not much has been said about him. Allegedly, he has, he's a drug kingpin. You know, allegedly, you know, he runs a number of trap houses. Now, going back to, this hot spot, 2424 Elliott Avenue. When they put that camera surveillance in that area, you do see in that same week, Breonna show up to that address to get Jamarcus Glover. And so everybody that shows up to that house, is their license plate is taken, and of course that returns back to Breonna Taylor. Unfortunately, she does show up in that address. Also, in that same week, Jamarcus Glover is arrested. And that's when you hear that conversation between him and her, where she's like, I worry about you. And he's asking about, did she get in contact with this particular guy so that he could be bailed out. And so they're having this conversation. She's saying that she's worried about him. And he asked her to get a hold of a friend, and then she says she will, and she bails him out. Now, Breonna's young. She's young. I don't think that she understood how the legal system works. I don't think that she understood that tapes can be, things can be recorded. I don't think she understood that when you bail out somebody, you are writing your name on a dotted line, and you are starting a paper trail for yourself. Now, they already have her car that was seen at 2424 Elliott. They already have her license plate. And then you have these phone conversations that they make, with her and Jamarcus as he is in jail. Then she also bails him out. She's starting a paper trail. And what I always tell people, because I did work at Cook County Department of Corrections, is that you are then held responsible with that person. You are then held responsible. You are then put on notice as well. Be careful who you bail out. Be careful what you put your name and what you sign your name to legally. If they are not your family and you don't know the circumstances behind the case, even if you believe that they are innocent, and they very well could be, Jamarcus very well could have been, but understand you are now attached. You are now attached. So be very, very careful and who you assist with bail and different things like that. I say stick to family that you know, stick to things that you know, and stay there. Because it's very, very important for your sake, and especially as a black man and a black woman, it's very important to watch yourself. And so all of these things are coming up, and that is why Breonna is linked to Jamarcus in such a way that there is no way that she could not be of interest to Louisville Police Department. So after he's bailed out, they continue to watch 2424 Elliott Avenue, and they also continue to watch Jamarcus. They put a GPS on Jamarcus's car, and then they began to do surveillance at Breonna's house. So she's seen multiple times in the car with Jamarcus. She's seen multiple times at 2424 Elliott Avenue. Yeah. Now, I will say this. During this time, Breonna was going through a rough time. She was unsatisfied being an EMT. She is known as saying that the pay was very, very low and the hours were very strenuous and long. And she was just unsatisfied in that job. So during this time, she did quit her job. And this was during a time where life for her was in a questioning phase. What is my purpose? What am I here for? What am I doing? I want more out of life. And she's just like me. At my age, and I'm, almost 10 years older than Breonna Taylor, I completely understand, this phase that she was going through. There's so much uncertainty. You're trying to walk in your purpose. You're unsatisfied. You don't know what you're doing. And so I think that her and Jamarcus linked because she was going through this questioning phase. And also because Breonna is a helper. And most black women are. We're helpers. We're helpers. We want to help men. We want to save men. We want to do the best that we can for men. And also because her dad left her at 6 years old and was in prison for life, I think she thought that she could save Jamarcus from that same situation. And I think she thought that linking with him would restore this type of lack of relationship she had with her father. And we know that, it doesn't make sense. But I'm not going to sit here and judge Breonna. I'm not going to sit here and judge Breonna for her choice, her life decisions. I was telling somebody the other day, I was dating a guy from Gary, Indiana. I didn't know much about him, but I do know that we rode to a location. He said he'll be out in a second. He went into a house. There was a couple of dudes outside. He came back in the car and we went about our way. I don't know what I was a part of. I don't know if I was a part of anything, but I very well could be. When you're in love, you're not thinking in those circumstances, especially when you're young and you're in love. You're not thinking about if this person can put you in harm and if this person is including you in a part of their lifestyle that you really shouldn't be in. So I don't fault her for her circumstances. And I also am intrigued to know Jamarcus's story. I'm also intrigued to know how his life was, what his background is, how he ended up in Louisville from Mississippi. Because a black man's story has like a lot of links and parts and layers and different things like that. And I'm not here to condemn him. I'm not here to judge him. I don't know his childhood trauma. I don't know his background. And so it's so easy for us to go, Jamarcus is an ass, right? Jamarcus just had no concern for her. However, it is apparent that Jamarcus is very misguided from what we do know. And because he's misguided, he ends up entangling Breonna in it as well. And because of that, several misfortunes happen because she is linked to Jamarcus.